Hello, my name is Brendan Decora, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, Pro Audio Profiles. Here, I'm going to interview recording engineers, mixers, producers, and others in the pro audio field. Together, we're going to learn how you can make amazing records that can give your listeners goosebumps. Welcome to the show. On today's show, we have Chad Gordon. He's a Grammy-nominated engineer and producer who has credits with Disclosure, Weyes Blood, and Kendrick Lamar, among many more. Enjoy. Thank you for being here on the show.
All right.
It's great to have you.
Yeah.
We've known each other a long time now. And
10 years, maybe?
Has it been that long?
Almost 10 years?
Yeah, I guess it has now, yeah.
It's been a long time.
Crazy, yeah. Yeah. So it's great to have
My
you.
identical twin brother.
Yes. Often referred to as Brother Brendan. The main premise behind the podcast is, how to inspire artists to, get great recordings that, give people goosebumps or whatever. And obviously, as engineers, mixers, producers, whatever, like, we have a role in that. But I just wanted to know, like, if there's anything in particular that if there's like a process for preparing an artist for the session that you do or anything like that.
I mean, so I guess maybe that harkens back when I went to school 10 or so years ago, is that I was always wondering how to do that myself. So I was wondering what kind of sidechain or whatever magic mixing, it's like the whole thing's not that complicated. You have to get a good instrument. You have to get a good song. You have to get a good player. You put mics there and it sounds pretty much great,
Right. With all those ingredients.
Well, yeah. And you just have to not get in the way, and as well as I do working at East West with those rooms and those mics and that gear, it's sort of, if you start with a great palette like that, then you get goosebumps instantly. It's like mixing that.
I mean, that's why you book a place like that. It
Exactly.
makes it so easy.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, we're going to spend the extra money and go here because I know that all I have to do is push up the fader and
you look like a genius.
We're done. Yeah.
What a great engineer.
But in turn, that inspires the artist. It's like they
Right.
walk in, they hear amazing headphone mix, everything else.
Right.
It makes it easy. There's
Right,
a
exactly.
reason why, so many amazing recordings that come out of that building. So,
I mean, it makes it so much easier. And when I discovered that, it's like, you get the right elements and you just, push up the faders really.
Right.
And they'll boost a bunch of EQ and do compress and, do this. It has to be a Pultec with this type of transformer.
Yeah.
If you switch the tubes out, then it's like,
yeah.
screw all that.
Yeah.
Let's start with the basics here.
Right.
And if you can get those right, it's so easy.
So that actually ties into one of my other questions is, what do you do if you, have to work with an artist that doesn't have a big budget, that you have to work in a subpar studio? Like, what are some things that you look out for?
Well, I mean, great question. That's where all this knowledge that we've gained by working at East West comes into play. It's so easy when you're at East West. It's definitely not easy if you're somewhere where you don't even know what you're listening to with the speakers.
Right.
So it's just, the monitoring is a big thing. Mm-hmm. You have to, hopefully they have a couple sets. You can go in between this and that. You can put on headphones. Other than that, you sort of just have to trust instinct. And if you have basic mics, that doesn't really matter. But, you've seen enough good drum kits that you know what a good drum kit sounds like. Mm-hmm. And you've probably worked on drums so much that you can make a subpar drum set sound better.
Right.
And I guess the other takeaway is that you can at least have faith that when you go to these places that are maybe subpar, that at least if you record all of the things with the mics in the right spot, that you can take it home and put the next level of icing on it.
And it's also like not everyone wants the most polished, shiny recording either. Like there's a lot of people.
Well, I don't. I love things that technically sound like shit. Some of the,
because it's a vibe. It's really cool. You know,
exactly.
There's a lot, like even when mixing, it's like, you know, the best sounding thing is not always the answer.
Right.
You know, as long as it's a really cool sound and it's inspiring, it fits the song. Your job's done. You know,
Exactly. Sometimes I was with an artist the other day, and we were timing, I think, a cowbell or something.
Okay.
And it was like, you know, we can time these all, and we ended up timing just a few, but the out of place hits was the vibe. At least that was what I was digging.
Right.
But we ended up timing a few, but you know, like those Velvet Underground albums, you know, technically sound like hell.
Yeah. There's a lot of records
a lot
like
of
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, that's what I like, noise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I worked with Sean Everett a couple of times, and it's like he embraces the noise and the ugly things. And I love that.
Yeah. Well, because like I said, it's like there's, you know, we're not making orchestral records or jazz records where we want the most pristine thing, you know. I mean, obviously
we do make those as well.
Yeah, that's to you know, to be considered with those as well. But you know, most of the time people are not looking for that. You know, they want that fatness, that saturation, that whatever, you know.
Well, I mean, the whole saturation game now, there's a new saturation plug every week now.
Exactly.
And they can even bait me into buying a new one. It's like, I don't need a new one. I kind of only need like one, really.
Right.
But
honestly, I still find myself going back to Decapitator. Like that's kind of all. Well,
that was the one I was talking about.
Exactly.
I typically just leave it on that first button, which I think it's an Ampex or something.
Ampex? I don't even know.
I don't really know
either.
Great.
So it's like
just drive.
Cool.
Oh, you need more punish button and to taste.
It's awesome.
And you can almost get everywhere sort of with that.
Yeah.
And if you can't, then you can pull up those other.
Of course.
Million
and
that you bought.
That ties back into another one of the things that I like to, you know, share. And the biggest thing that I've learned is it really is the cooking, not the kitchen. You know, it's about the tools you use. It's like you can, you know, I've been on sessions where I was assisting where, you know, a guy came in to mix and they didn't like the outboard gear in the room. So he brought in a ton of rental gear and separate Pro Tools rigs and like mountains of all this stuff. And granted, he made a great sounding mix. Don't get me wrong. It sounded awesome.
Did he need all that crap?
The next day, the next client came in, plugged in 2 reverbs and used nothing but the console.
It sounded 10 times
better. It
better.
sounded just as good. It's like, okay, well, it doesn't matter, you know.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day. I mean, within reason, obviously. If you're stuck with, you know, some lame thing that's terrible, then you can only go so far. But
I think
if you
that's...
have any quality piece of gear, it's like, you know, you can, as long as you know what you're doing.
I mean, it's funny. Us coming up at East West, we are very privileged to have seen the best and the worst. People come in and they think they need to use all the outboard gear.
Yeah.
And I know, because I've seen them use all the outboard gear and I've seen them use none of the outboard gear. I know that the outboard gear a lot of times can just get in the way and cause problems. Mm-hmm. I always monitor out 1 and 2 at any of these studios because I don't want the monitor section telling me that there's some noise there that's not there. I don't want to waste any time on that.
Yeah.
I don't want to mix on the monitor section. I just want to know what I'm getting.
Exactly.
And all of that stuff can massively get in the way, especially if it's vintage gear. You never know what it could go down if you're in the middle of the take.
Yeah.
And you know, something's going spitting tube noises at you. You've then sort of failed your job there, you know? So I don't want people to think that you shouldn't use all of this outboard gear. It's very fun.
But that's the beauty is like, because we've worked at all these amazing studios, it's like we know that, obviously the great gear makes a difference, but you know, at the same time, we have the experience to know. It's like there's a lot of people that have only ever worked at home. Like there's so many times I can't even count. A client will come into the studio and be like, wow, that's an 1176. I've never seen one in person.
Yeah.
You know, like because that's all they know is,
Right.
you know.
And we
the
walk in
basic
and we're like,
stuff.
oh, usual suspects.
Right.
Like, I mean,
do everything.
LA 2A's, 1126,
Paul
yeah,
Tex,
there's
whatever,
Fairchild over there.
Put the Fairchild on it, like whatever.
Right.
You know, we're used to that.
And a lot of times, sadly, it's like, don't put the Fairchild on it because you never know when it works, it is the greatest.
Yeah.
But if it messes up on that, if you put it on this very special element that you need,
Yeah. And it craps out at the wrong moment.
it could be the kiss of death.
Yeah.
You know, so.
But that being said, I mean, it's also another thing I want to talk about is, you know, working with clients with varying levels of expertise in that stuff.
Right. And if you have, I guess if you have the budget to spend the time and do that stuff,
Right.
let's rock.
And if the client understands, like, okay, you know, I know that, you know, this thing is vintage and sounds amazing when it's working, but it's a risk. Let's still use it, you know, versus the guy that, you know, doesn't know any better is like, I'm paying all this money to be here. Why do we have to do it again? All this stuff should work.
Oh,
like,
man, that's the worst.
Because it's a vintage studio.
I know.
You're paying to be here because it's vintage. Like,
I had someone walk in not the other day, this was maybe like a year ago, and he's like, why is everything so old? It's like, okay, you clearly don't get it, but, you know, we'll explain it to you.
Right.
You know?
Right. And obviously, that's another thing you pay for at those studios is, yes, all the equipment is vintage, but they have the text to back it up.
Totally.
You know, so a lot of the time it's working in great condition, and
especially
you don't
East
have to
West.
worry about that.
Especially,
of course.
it's almost always working pristine, and if it goes down, it's going to be working tomorrow.
Right, and that's, you know, when you work in a cheaper studio, they may have vintage shit, but half of it may be broken, like you don't even know. It's
Probably
like,
all is broken.
Yeah. So.
Oh well, those two channels work.
Right.
The rest of the desk kind of just for looks.
Right. So I know sometimes you produce, sometimes you mix, sometimes you engineer. What do you, can you discuss your role in helping an artist develop their overall sound for the record?
Well, that's always different. I like to start with, you know, obviously what's the song? Let's pull the song up and let's take a listen. Let's see what we can do with it. But I'm not really technically musically inclined. I'm not a music theory person. Mm-hmm. That's sort of not my bag.
Yeah.
So it's, for me, I like to, you know, start with what's the song? Okay, well, let's listen to some music. Let's see, what direction do you want to go in? And then we'll get a game plan. And it's really always, you know, let's get what kind of drum sound is going to, you know, suit this tune.
Right.
Or what kind of bass sound. I know what I like, so I always, a lot of time, put my, you know, I got a 67 Ludwig over here that I just got. So it's like that for a drum kit is almost always going to work. But if it's not, you know, let's try different snares for sure. Mm-hmm. The shells, you know, the kit is typically always going to work. So, you know, different snares, different cymbals.
Right.
Bass is going to be, if it was up to me, I would almost always use the violin hollow with flats on there.
Oh, the Hofner.
That's just what I love.
Damn, dude.
That's what I love. But, you know, because, you know, everyone uses a P bass.
Yes.
Everyone uses a P bass.
Because it's solid.
It's so good.
That's the sound that everyone wants. It's like,
it's so great.
There's so many times I'm on a session and, you know, they, you know, say, give me a reference for the bass sound. And it's like, well, you use some, you know, other weird bass.
Right.
Like, where's the P bass?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
Just plug in a P bass and that's the sound.
P bass. And I'm about to purchase one of those, you know, Mustangs that do the P and the J.
Oh, yeah,
the
cool.
PJ.
Right.
It's because it's short. I'm more of a guitar player, so it's a short scale, and it can do both of those things. So it can do a smattering of different things.
Okay.
But, you know, you get a cool bass, you get a cool drum, you get a cool guitar tone, and what else do you need?
Job's
really?
done.
Exactly.
Yep.
Job's done.
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
Well, the thing that I am trying to push a couple of bands that I'm working with now to do is like, let's track basics live, you know, like East West. Right. And I'm set up here at home that I can do that. I can do full drum kit, mic'd up, bass, a couple of guitars. Cool. Let's get a base of core things going, and then we have the feel. That's so great. Everyone in the room can look at each other and be like, "That was the one."
Right.
And then you put some keys, and you put a couple of vocal overdubs, and you put a couple of space echo tracks or something. You know,
obviously it depends on the track and the
what
artist
the thing
too.
is. Yeah,
but
yeah.
do you do that and then also go back and redo the guitars and layer a bunch of shit?
Sometimes if you have to.
Yeah.
I like the other day it was we did that here, and we sort of got the take, but I was like, let's get some safety drums. So I just put it on loop, and we all went upstairs and sort of had a couple of beers or something. And the drummer just did like 4 more takes. So he ended up choosing something we didn't do live, which was fine, but the one we had live was great. So it was like, if you want to choose that one, then I'm on board. It sounds great. Yeah. Cool. So just it's always different.
And it also depends, obviously, if like how much of a live feel they're going for. Like if it's like not even on the click, or if they're a little loose with the timing, like it's important to get it all live together.
I mean, if you're doing it that way, the players have got to be good enough to do it all.
Yeah.
So, there's
otherwise
that.
it's like, okay, lock it to the click.
Right.
You're going to edit stuff.
If the players aren't good enough to do that, then that's not going to really fly.
Right.
But I went to, it's funny, I went to solo the drums to show one of the guitar players. And I'm like, oh yeah, check it out. And I was like wanting to hear the guitar bleed in there. I'm like, oh, I guess we're not using the live take, which is fine, but yes.
But sometimes it's all about the bleed. Like
that's what that's part of the sauce that I want to capture with doing the band live is that little bit of bleed that like the Stones and the Velvet Underground and everyone had back in the day. That's part of the old, the old sound. If I had the money, I'd get a 24-track tape machine down here.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully soon I'll just.
Well, they're cheap now. You can do it.
Well, everything's going up in price.
Well, you need a console with it too, though. That's the problem.
Right. So I can, but having the knowledge from East to West, I can get those sounds with minimal gear.
Yeah.
Where 10 years or 10, 15 years ago, I thought it was black magic. I thought that how are they doing this? It's like, well, first of all, they got a ton of money. They go rent a very expensive studio with the best gear
for 6 months.
Right. They bring in, Angel City Drums or Drum Doctor, whoever, and get all the best kits. You get all the best session players. Like, of course it sounds phenomenal. Duh.
Right. No, it's also about, coming back to like clients with different levels of expertise. Like sometimes you have to educate your clients a little bit, whether it be, okay, we want to track it all live. We want the real organic feel.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, there's going to be bleed. And if you want to go back and edit a bunch of stuff and take from different takes, that's may be fucked up,
Yeah. And that's, I think a lot of the time, the most heavy lifting of these sessions happens in the days previous with those conversations. Really? Okay. Yeah. Because they tell you what they want to do. And they say, this is what we want to do. And you picture the room and how many ISOs in there, how many channels, how many channels that are good.
How much bleed is going to be in the drums.
All that stuff. So you write down what they want to do. Then you write down your list of the conversations that you then need to have. And then you have them and you sort of work out, so when you get to the studio, and you're setting all this stuff. This is before the client comes. You're setting up everything. You're checking everything 3 times. It's all in the prep work, so that when they walk in, you can hit record, and it's like, whoa!
So that they're inspired when they walk in.
Then you can go and get your breakfast and your coffee.
Exactly.
Like, all right. Well, all the hard work is done. Now we just get to sort of have fun.
Exactly, and that's the point: is skipping all the boring, plugging in the cable and checking stuff out, and
you do not want to be sweating.
You want to skip straight to the creative parts,
100%.
Keep everyone motivated,
100%.
and inspired,
and you don't want to
that.
be tripping over yourself and sweating in front of these people.
That too.
Yeah. That's a surefire way to have them not call you again.
Absolutely.
As you well know, like it's happened to all of us,
Right.
It's like, okay, I made that mistake. I am not making that mistake anymore.
Yeah. That actually ties into one of the next questions is there, I mean, maybe not an example, but, a time when you had to deal with a particularly challenging artist and how you motivated them to deliver a better performance?
Where do I go with this one? I mean, there's just, we've both worked with everyone. We've seen it all. Sometimes people ask me these questions. I blank because I literally can't remember what last week was. What did I even do the week prior to that? I don't know. A problematic experience where I coached them out of it. I mean, it's sort of every day in a way.
Every session.
It's a lot psychological.
Absolutely.
We've had this conversation before. It's that like, when we're teaching the runners, whatever, to look, these cables have to look nice because when this artistic person walks in,
and they see a mess.
They don't even know why they're frazzled, but they can't perform at their highest level because it's a mess. If it's all clean and nice,
the lighting is weird.
The lighting, I mean,
the AC is too cold, or like there's so many little things. Like
the lighting, I think is a massive one.
Yeah,
especially I'm always, part of this prep of the room and the gear and all this is like the final layer for me is going over to the light switches and sort of dimming them just perfect.
Right.
If it's too early in the day, you don't want to be too dark.
Of course.
Because, you don't want to seem like midnight and be tired, but you still want it to be dim and vibey. It's just so psychological. It's almost every level of it is you're coaching someone's, I don't want to say ego, but you're
well, they're all creative people. So it's like you have to tie into that. You have to be aware of that to make sure that, everyone's comfortable and happy. And so
it is all of those things, as you know, matter so much.
Oh yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of an instance where I sort of coached someone into a better thing, but it's hard to say because it's almost every session where you're sort of like, okay, well, they seem a little miffed, or you're always, can I get you a coffee? Can I get you a tea? Anything you want. That's a big one too. Coffee, tea, water. You ask everyone that the instant you see them, can I get you something?
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're the biggest producer engineer.
Makes you feel welcome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, now I can chill. Now I got my coffee, I got my tea, I can chill.
Right. Absolutely. Is there how do you handle creative differences with artists and, ensure a positive outcome for both parties?
Great hard-hitting questions here. I mean, I was sort of having this conversation with a band the other day that, they sort of have differences and they got to work through them. And one of the biggest takeaways of working with a lot of successful artists, groups, bands, is that they're almost never fighting with each other. If you're successful, you don't have to. You've figured out a way to sort of coexist with your.
You don't have to prove yourself.
You don't. I mean, you can't have longevity with a group or a band that you're in if you guys are always fighting. Guys, gals, I should say. And I guess if you are in a band that does that, I mean, you'd be stressed out all the time. It's just, it's not a recipe. What was the question?
It's more creative differences instead of
creative differences. I mean, you just have to. What I do is I say, let's try them both. Let's try them all. Let's grab them. Let's record that idea and let's record that idea, and we'll have them both. We don't have to decide right now. Let's get them both, and we can. even mute them both for now and just decide later.
Right.
It's nice to sort of have everyone come to an instant decision, but sometimes it takes recording both to be like, oh well, yeah, okay,
right.
That
sometimes you
absolutely doesn't work.
Sometimes you have to give them a rope to hang themselves with.
Well, yes. I want it to be panned this way and this way.
That's a terrible idea, and I know why,
right.
but you don't. So here, I'll show you.
Right. It's so much easier to say, well, let's try it.
Exactly.
And hit record than have that 20-minute conversation. It's like, it'll take 3 minutes to record that horrible idea. But, let's grab it. Let's it's not going to work. Of course it's not going to work. But,
right.
I sound like a horrible person right now. No.
It's true. I started it. No. But no, it's about, the psychology of it. It's keeping people happy. It's keeping the vibe light. It's like not creating unnecessary conflict. We're both kind of chill guys. Like I feel like
exactly
why we're successful in this, because we don't get bothered by the drama,
Exactly. And I explain that to a lot of the up and coming cats at the studio, is that I'm not the smartest technical guy. I can't open up one of these pieces of gear and take a soldering iron and
right.
I don't know what type of tube or transformer, and frankly, I don't really care.
Right.
But one thing I'm great at is sort of being sort of chill. If someone pisses me off in the studio, I can take the blow.
Right.
I'll go out in the hallway and curse them out. I'll curse them to anyone who will listen.
Right.
But
you're going to maintain your calm in the studio.
I'm here to do a job, you know?
Yeah.
And I love making music. And as you well know, we have to take the shit gigs and we take the good gigs, but we're not going to get any of the gigs if we become the person who no one will call.
Yeah.
So
and one thing I've found even recently is there's sometimes very difficult clients. And at first glance, you're dealing with these people and it's like, in the back of your mind, you're like, screw this guy. Like, I just don't even want to deal. But you put on that, calm, okay, let's, be nice, be cool. And that in turn turns into like amazing clients. They're like, it totally changes their vibe.
100%.
They understand and they like you, and you end up starting a long relationship.
Exactly.
With them. So you never really know,
right?
What will happen. So.
Exactly. Some of the calls you get in the beginning, you say, "Oh my God, this is gonna be
a nightmare."
I've seen this movie before.
Yeah.
I can see the train coming right at me. This is gonna be a horrible day tomorrow.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, sometimes that can be okay. Well, I understand why they're so frazzled.
Right. Yeah.
They just want the best thing, or
they're stressed out, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever the case may be, you never know what someone's going through. So
yeah.
You gotta be an even keel person. You gotta be able to just sort of. Another thing that I do is, a lot of time I have to sit there and think a little bit before I speak.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. I need to go grab a cable for this. Just give me a moment, and I'll step out and say, okay, what do I need to do here? Let me think. Okay, and then you get your game plan. Found the cable. You didn't need it. You go.
Yeah.
You're trying to plug something in, and off we go.
Yep. Awesome. I just want to take a quick break and tell you about my free guide detailing my techniques for recording huge snare sounds. Check it out now at brandondecora.com/huge snare. And now back to the show. So is there any current or recent projects that you want to highlight?
I was on a bunch of Grammy-nominated stuff this year.
Nice.
Worked on the Kendrick thing with phenomenal producers.
Nice. That won a couple, didn't it?
It won rap album, and it won, I think, the song, which I didn't work on the song. That won. I think it won a few, and
but that means you won.
Does it? I don't know. Sure. I don't. I'll take it.
Mr.
Sure.
Grammy winning.
Sure.
engineer.
Yeah. Statue. No, it's not there. I worked a little bit on the Lizzo thing, which is great.
Cool.
It was an amazing experience. I I did maybe 4 or 5 days with Mark Ronson, but none of that stuff made it. But I did a session with his name escapes me right now. An engineer at East West, and we did drums for one of the songs in Studio 2, which was great.
Okay.
I worked with David Boucher for the Encanto movie.
Oh, cool.
That was nominated for a few. I think that might have won a few.
Nice.
The Edgar Winter album.
Oh, you worked on that.
I worked on that.
Nice.
I worked with Beck's dad, David Campbell.
Yeah.
Have you worked with him?
I've worked, yeah.
Super
he's
cool.
Amazing.
We did strings in Studio 2.
Yeah.
Great. A lot of fun.
Awesome.
There was one more. I didn't realize that I worked on the Doja Cat Post Malone song.
Okay.
Blake, the owner of East West, hit me up and said, "Oh, you worked on this one too." And I said, "Oh, okay." I had no. I didn't.
So where's all your plaques, man?
Well, I know. Well, now they cost $100 each.
Yeah, they've always cost $100 each.
No, they used to cost $50 each. The pieces of paper from the Grammy thing.
Oh, those. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just the gold records.
Oh, those. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold off and fill my room with gold records.
Right.
But you know, I'm not the most major player in all of these things, but
Still,
you know,
it's still an accomplishment.
I consider it a great honor and accomplishment to have worked on these very special projects.
Yeah.
Another one I worked on recently was this artist Weyes Blood. We worked in Studio 3 and with Jonathan Rado, Andrew Sarlo, the Lemon Twigs, and Joy Warnicker came in and played on a tune. Nice. And then we went and did strings in Studio 1. It was sort of, as far as scenarios for making albums, sort of my dream scenario because it was all live band in Studio 3.
Nice.
You know, magic room, especially if you get the right players and the right instruments.
Yeah.
All to tape.
Nice.
So it's like basics with great players to tape. And then, you know, we did I don't know, maybe 7, 8, 9 songs or something like that.
Right.
And then you take that all and put strings on it in Studio 1.
Nice.
It's just, I mean,
it's awesome.
It's the dream scenario.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
the way that I wish I could work all the time.
Every record. Yeah.
But you know, you got to work with budgets and things.
Absolutely.
So you got to figure out how to make those records in a bedroom, which is it's a fun experience as well. And it's
absolutely
the challenge is the challenge is real.
But it's using that experience from those projects to now, you know, okay, you recording this in the bedroom, it sounds like crap, but hey, let's make it cool, or let's tweak a sound or whatever, you know, like you're saying.
And I'm working with this band who is sort of started another band and now they're back. It's band Blanco Nino, phenomenal talent. We're just finishing mixing an album right now, and then we're going to start the next album hopefully pretty quickly, and I think we're going to do it that live tracking way.
Awesome.
They were part of the group that played on the other thing I did here, and
cool.
Everyone was like, whoa, this is such a great way to work.
Yeah.
So we're going to attempt to do the new album that way. Nice. I'm doing mixing for this band Rinse and Repeat. It's sort of heavy. It's hard to describe the music, but it's kind of hard, but it's super fun. It has like sort of what's that band? Devo. It sort of has a Devo, but more. Nice. It's more intense.
Right.
It's great.
Nice.
We're mixing their EP. There's so many things.
Cool.
It's Yamaha. I've been working with Yamaha a bunch.
Okay.
Which has put me in the room with Greg Fillinganes.
Nice.
And with Nathan East, and just working with those cats.
Yeah.
I did a session the other day with Pino Palladino.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Talk about the best in the business.
Absolutely.
With those names right there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's enough. That's
enough. Right. Exactly.
You could go on and on and on.
It's no. I can't remember what I did last week. It came to me.
Awesome. So I've been ending each podcast with the same few questions for everyone. The first one is, what has been your most influential teacher?
That's a tough one because I've been so lucky to have. I mean, you taught me a ton coming up at East West. I mean, shout out to Brendan. This guy's really the king.
Thank you.
I went to Blackbird Academy or Blackbird School of Audio in Nashville, and had some amazingly talented people teach me over there. That's a tough one, man. There's so many people. Right. I'm someone who didn't stumble into just having stuff sound great. I really had to work, and I had to make so many things sound like shit. That's
what everyone does.
But I really had to make them sound really shit. No. It's that's a very tough question because I've been very lucky to be surrounded by some very talented people. So
awesome.
It takes, what's the saying? It takes a village.
Right.
It really took a village for me to succeed. I've been a very fortunate young person, but
cool.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's super tough.
It is hard. I was even like, I don't know how I would answer that question.
You have to just go, boom, 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 boom. It's like, giving your Grammy speech, you have to name 400 people.
Exactly.
Just thank your wife and say goodnight.
Exactly. All right. So what is your favorite reference track? Like if you go to a new studio or whatever, one song you put on to learn the room.
That's a great question too. I put on that War on Drugs album quite often. A Better Understanding, or the one that Sean Everett did.
Okay.
The one that won the Grammys, and then I'm always adding new songs to my Spotify.
Okay.
I'm always adding new, so I sort of go down and I listen to things that I just want to listen to. Mm-hmm. I don't go in and put on Steely Dan or or whatever. I love Steely Dan. Yeah. Don't get me wrong.
No, I mean, there's no right answer to this question.
Right.
It's whatever you like.
It's a tough one. I sort of just put on, I need to make sure, like I was at Sunset Sound, like a couple of months ago, and I went in and it was like, oh great. They got, these type of mains. It's going to sound great. Put on the mains. I was like, this is not going to fly. So we then proceeded to figure out which near fields that we were going to pair with a sub that is going to be the client annihilator, the ones where they're like, wow.
Yeah.
And so we just had to, whatever the tune was that we put on, I can't remember what we put on, but we just had to make sure that it like really hit hard.
Right.
But I sort of just go in and that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I have no rhyme or reason to anything I do, apparently. I'm just figuring that out.
Good.
I'm just figuring that out. Something that, has a smooth top and a nice mid and
sounds good.
Not too much low end. And
I mean, at the end, it's just something you're familiar with. It can sound like anything.
Right.
But if okay, I know this sounds like ass. It doesn't sound like ass here.
Right.
Then we're good.
Well, I'm not going to put it on like Velvet Underground.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
But that's the point, is if you are intimately familiar with that could be an answer for you.
Right.
It's just about what you're.
I mean, that's it has such its own sound that if you're going to these big studios, more often than not, you're going for these big sounds a lot of the time. So you have to sort of put on something that is that full range. And if you're doing a hip hop session, I guess you got to put on some hip hop, or
something with low end.
Yeah, you're doing some rock and roll. You got to put on some rock and roll, and
for sure.
Totally. What do you put on?
I actually have this Australian band that I really like called Carnival, and they have a song. I think it's called New Day, and
I'm stealing that.
I like it. I mean, I'm super familiar with it. I've heard it a million times, but it also is a song that it starts kind of quiet and mellow, and then it gets big and heavy in the choruses, and it like has
And
a
it's
big
full range as well. Yeah.
And there's, low end, it's got top end. I know what it should sound like.
Yeah,
But like I said, it could be, anything as long as Like I worked with a hip hop engineer one time that was mixing a track, and, he wanted oratones to mix on.
Interesting. Yeah.
But he was so familiar with oratones that he got the low end perfect.
Really?
And then once he put it upstairs in the big speakers, the low end was spot on.
Wow.
Because he's so familiar with it.
Yeah.
And so that proves it doesn't matter what it is. It's about your own familiarity.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
So
that's. I wish I was there to see that. Mixing massive hip hop on oratones.
Exactly.
Put it on the big boys, and it was knocking.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
he
cool.
just knew how they should react.
Yeah.
He's super familiar. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You've already given a few of them already, but the last question is, what would be one tidbit for an upcoming engineer?
Oh, man. I mean, you just have to, it might sound cliche to say, but you just have to do it every day. I mean, you have to love what you're doing. I'm fortunate to have found the thing that I love to do, and I don't need to get rich by doing it. But I do need to do it to be happy.
Right.
So it's just, you just got to work on music every day. You have to start small, and you have to work hard. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to come up at one of these big studios, you have to sort of reserve yourself to, I'm going to be cleaning a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing things that aren't going to be teaching me how to use NS10s or what, all these things.
Right.
You have to work your ass off.
Yeah.
Which is what I did. And you just have to work your ass off, and you have to take those hits. You have to take those bad sessions. Right. You learn something from every session. Yeah. You have to just stay in the game. And I've seen people come through and see that they have to do this hard work and just say, I do not want to do this. Right. I'm going to find another path. And they end up not doing anything. Yeah. And
I've seen it a lot.
They just, if you just stay in the game, if you just keep making music, you're going to keep getting better and better and better. And you're going to keep getting, if you have a good disposition, that is, if you're some asshole, you're not, no matter if you stay in it or not, you're probably not, unless you're supremely talented, you're not going to be getting these calls. You have to be nice. You have to be a nice person. You have to be a good person. You have to be loyal, not a liar. You have to work your ass off. Right. And you just have to make music every day. Yeah. Whether it's shitty music or great music, everything makes you better. Doing anything makes you better.
Right. Just about the experience.
Just exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Training your ears. Oh, that's a good kick drum. That's a shitty kick drum. Right. Sometimes the shitty kick drum sounds better than the good kick drum. And,
exactly.
You don't know that unless you've recorded 1,000 kick drums.
And sometimes the client wants the shitty kick drum. Right. It's like, okay, that's
these clients brought in, I swear, this Toys R Us drum kit, and I was like, oh no, here we go. And it was like, wow, that kick is really hitting. It sounds great. Nice. I need to get one of those. Awesome. But you don't know that shit unless you stay in the game. Yeah. And if you leave town and you think you're going to go do it back in wherever you're from, you're probably not. Right. So keep at it, really. Yeah. Honestly. Right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
You've seen how many people have left town, you're like,
I can't even count.
I know. I can't
even count.
They're not going to do anything. Sadly. Yeah. Not that they're, not nice or talented or whatever, but oftentimes they just
the passion for it.
I was willing to do anything to stay in the game. Yeah. And, I must have cleaned 1,000 toilets.
Yep, we all have.
Like 1,000 toilets.
Part of the game. Yep.
It was rough.
But then after you did that, you went and talked to the assistant and got information and learned and whatever,
I'd be in there every night, be like, "Oh, yeah, why'd you use? Why'd you do that? What'd you EQ on this? What'd you, And unless you're in the building, albeit cleaning toilets or putting up mics, you're not gonna be able to gain that knowledge if you're not there. So.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening to the show. As you know, I'm just getting this started, and I'd love your feedback on how I'm doing, if I should keep this going, what your thoughts are. Feel free to visit proaudioprofiles.com and send me a message. Until next time.